Oi, desculpa interromper seu podcast, mas você ainda perde vendas por deixar seus clientes esperando? Com a Nuvem Shop, você vende 24 horas por dia na sua loja online, integrada ao Instagram, TikTok e Google Shopping. Grandes empreendedores como Joel J, Camila Farani e mais de 130 mil lojas estão com a gente. Corra e acesse nosso site, Nuvem Shop. A paixão por empreender nos une.
RH, quer saber como voar no trabalho? É só usar a Flash. Com a Flash, você concentra toda a gestão de pessoas em um único lugar. Faça a admissão dos colaboradores e solicite mais de 8 categorias de benefícios. Ah, e você ainda pode fazer todo o controle de ponto. Conheça o novo onboarding integrado da Flash em flashapp.com.br.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Leslie Alvarez, and she's got this mantra: when life gives you lemons, make tamales. She's coming out of South Florida, and she's going to talk to us all about resiliency and mindset and how to bounce back. And I think it'll be a very inspiring episode for the audience. So, Leslie, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really find your story very inspiring and encouraging. So, talk about how you got started and how you bounced back, and we'll dive into the mindset tools that you use to achieve success.
Sure. So at a very young age, I married and had children. And the story of the tamales and the lemons is that when I was 5 months pregnant with my son, my second child, my husband wanted a divorce. And I was not working, and I was trying to figure out how I would pay all my bills. And his mother, we lived in Houston. We lived in Southeast Houston. And his mother, who didn't speak any English and I spoke no Spanish, pulled me aside, had a translator say, look, I don't agree with what my son did, but I don't have the money to help you. I can't help you, but I can help you help yourself. And she gave me a grocery list, sent me to the grocery store, and I came back to the house and she helped me make my first batch of tamales. And then she said, now go out to the parking lot at the grocery store and sell them. And then go back inside the grocery store, buy some more supplies, and read and rinse and repeat, so to speak. That's how I got started for the story, was that I was able to make my way for many years as a single parent. When struggles came up, financial things came up that I needed to deal with, I had that resource always. I break out the tamale pot and start cooking.
Yeah, which is really interesting because I love how you added a cultural twist and spin to it. And so what is the things that I think right now the world is going through a lot of turmoil, and we've seen a lot of interruption and just kind of adversity. So what is the one mindset or cool trick that you would give to the audience that are experiencing these setbacks and these hiccups and these frustrations?
There's been multiple times in my life that I have fallen to my knees. Like I've been cut off at the knees and I am on the ground, and both literally and figuratively. And I just believe that when you're on the ground, it's okay to take a moment and honor what you're dealing with and what you're feeling with, and acknowledge it and recognize it. But I believe that the comeback begins while you're on the floor. While you're on the floor, you start plotting for how you're going to overcome this and put together your master plan, so to speak. So I don't believe that you can just sit on that floor and feel sorry for yourself. I think you've got to start making your comeback plan in the midst of the chaos that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I really love that. So talk about this idea of basically it's how you view things, and especially with really a lot of turmoil such as the ones you faced. Discuss how the symbolism, and you talk about selling tamales as symbolic of your entrepreneurial journey. How does this experience shape your mindset toward business and survival?
It just reminds me that I can survive and overcome anything, right? If you're at your absolute lowest and you overcame it, then you know what? You can push forward. You always know that. And you have to keep in your mind all those wins that you've constantly overcome, every day that you've overcome. I mean, I think there's a saying to something to the degree of as of today, you've overcome your worst day, right? And so you have to remind yourself of that constantly, that you did push forward, that you did overcome and get through some really tough, challenging times, so that when the next challenge hits, it's more, it's not, doesn't make it less difficult to deal with, but it makes it easier for you to recognize that you're going to get through it.
The other, another follow-up question that that I'm very curious about is, for example, there's a popular phrase in saying, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And, one thing that's really interesting that I found is I've got a plan, and then all of a sudden, you're geared towards, for example, like New Year's, you got New Year's resolution, or you want to try this like new diet or exercise or sleep or regime, and you're doing great. And all of a sudden you're into it. And then all of a sudden you get bad news, like something with your company or your family or this. And so after that, it's like kind of blows the wind out of your sail. How do you find motivation? Because sometimes when that happens, it's like you're on it, but then all of a sudden you get setback, you have a pandemic, or you've got a war, or you've got inflation. How do you find that motivation?
Yeah, I know. And sometimes the list of things that are so long itself will demotivate you, right? It's not that you're having a bad day. It's just that you've got such a long list of things to do as an entrepreneur that you just are like, I have no motivation. I just want to go back to bed. I'm tired just looking at my list of things to do.
Yeah.
But I think fundamentally, again, I think that you surround yourself with positive people who are going to help to remind you of everything that you've already overcome to this point. And they can certainly help to be your biggest cheerleader to bring you out of those dumps when you get in those dumps, if you're not capable of pulling yourself out sometimes. But I also believe that there's always a time to go get some ice cream and just take a moment. Nothing seems quite as bad after you've had a Dairy Queen dipped cone. You just sit there and enjoy your dipped cone. And at the end of that, you're like, okay, here I am. Let's go again. Let's start chopping off at what needs to get done. Because there's no end. We all say it's going to get better after this week, my schedule, my this, my that. And it's going to be better after next month. If I can just get through one more month. Look, there's always going to be a challenge. It's never going to go away. And it seems that the challenges get more and more challenging as they progress through your life. And so I'm a firm believer that every challenge has given you the skill set and the ability to grow and move so that you can accomplish and move forward through the next challenge. And so that you build upon those challenges for your resiliency.
Really beautifully said. And the other question, another follow-up question I have is, talk about the power of perspective and perception, because one thing I've learned by talking to a lot of successful entrepreneurs such as yourself is we've got one with a growth mindset, one with a kind of fixed mindset, and one kind of open a possibility. And you take two events or stimuli or information. One of them is going to interpret it one way and the other is going to interpret it another way. And so talk about when you face these things like a divorce or a loss or a financial setback, that's a really powerful negative stimulus. And talk about the power of perception. How do you find how do you get mental, emotional leverage on that negativity to turn it into something positive?
One, I know when I was younger and that divorce happened, I didn't have much of a choice because at that point, I was now a single parent. I had two young children. So they were great motivation for me to keep pushing forward for many years. But again, it's setting yourself a goal and not losing sight of it. And like they have everybody nowadays, it's cool to have vision boards and things like that so that it keeps reminding you of what the purpose is so that you don't forget the end game, because the challenges can definitely overcome you and make you and start to block out the end game. And you forget that sometimes, and you can get boggled down in the stress of the day to day. And I've suffered a lot over the years, single parent, loss of a loved one, job loss. My son nearly passed away when he was 17. But again, I just looked at it all as this is just the next hurdle to get past. And what's the end game? I've got to get to that and focused on that, and kept those people around me that were willing to constantly remind me of what my goal was. And it just kept me more focused on looking for the goal to solve and how to get through whatever I was dealing with.
Yeah. The other I love that kind of the end game, and everybody's got a path and a purpose and a journey. I know we're coming to the end. We have around 8 minutes remaining. And so one thing I was always fascinated by is these successful entrepreneurs. And it seems like a lot of people that are extremely successful in their business or their careers, it's almost, I don't want to say black cloud or bad luck, but if you hear some of their stories, it's like, I don't know if life is testing you or preparing, but talk about like this. Cause I know some people, they've got a very superficially successful life and they haven't gone through much turmoil. And then there's people that have gone through like horrible things and have a deeper resolve. Is there such thing as bad luck or black cloud, or is that just the universe preparing somebody for what's coming?
I never used to win a single door prize in my life up until
Hmm.
recently. Like it's just, yeah, like I didn't ever win anything. I didn't seem to have that magic touch for good luck. And that was literally in door prizes and raffles and things like that. But yeah, I did seem like everything just kept getting thrown at me. And it did feel like sometimes the universe was working against me. And I think that some of that is we are our own magnet. We have our own magnetism. And sometimes when when we look for negativity and we look for bad things to happen, they do
Mhm.
often find us. Everyone can have the negativity and the bad luck per se if
Mhm.
they're looking for it. But if we start to put a better mindset to our minds and looking more for positive support, and again, surrounding ourselves with the right people who also think very positively, you'll often find that even though there's challenges that still get thrown in your way and they are massive, you just have a better mindset. And I think that's what comes back to when I'm on the floor and something's happening. I don't get lost in the negativity of that incident, whatever is happening at the time. I'm focused on, okay, I'm feeling this. Somebody passed away. I'm upset, but I know I'm going to get past this and I know there's going to be a new day and I know that the next day is coming and it's going to bring me great things. And I just don't try to get tied up in that negativity. And I think a lot of it is a mental thing. We attract what we think.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard so many stories. It's almost the other thing is a follow-up question is in this kind of, they talk about the journey is lonely or it's lonely at the top. And a lot of people, they face setbacks and a lot of times they feel like it's just them or it's talk about your work, how you help. You're trying to bring awareness that nobody is alone and you're trying to involve community and create support. So talk about this idea of you're not alone because a lot of people think, oh, this is just happening to me when I have nobody to turn to.
I think that's exactly it. I happen to be a very open and transparent person. I'm willing to talk about my struggles. I'm willing to talk about my challenges, even while I'm in the thick of them. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people keep things to themselves. And that sometimes is how they were raised to keep the family dirty laundry inside the family and they don't take it outside the house or they just don't share and they're just more of an introvert and they just don't share. That can actually make them start to feel alone because they're experiencing these struggles and they're not talking to anybody. They're not sharing with anybody. And so then they start to feel that it's just them. And so I feel that's where my struggles, especially, I kept thinking, why am I going through all of this? Why does this sort of stuff keep happening to me? And I feel like it was happening to me so that I was able to then share with others what I went through and what I had dealt with and how I had overcome it so that they were able to realize, even if they're sitting in an audience and they're not sharing their own story, they're hearing mine and they're going, that sounds like me, or that sounds like something that I went through. And from there, they feel the commonality and they recognize that they're not alone. So I feel like there's those of us that are willing to share and we should, because it does help those that are more introverted or more private that don't want to share to avoid them getting in their own head and heading down even worse paths.
Yeah, I love that. And what's fascinating because I actually, I wrote a book to share my journey and I actually thought I was alone. I actually just needed that creative process to just process all of the thoughts and emotions. And it was very fascinating because people I didn't even know reach out to me and say, oh, your book really resonated with me. Oh, this happened to me. And I actually thought it was just happening to me as well. So it's really great that you're able to share. So just sum it up. What are key lessons you learned about resilience and empathy, especially empathy? Sometimes we see people struggling, and what sort of inspiration would you like to pass on to others listening to this, and how can people find you?
The main thing is, again, just what I just finished saying, you're not alone. There's always somebody out there that struggled or have been challenged with something very similar to whatever it is that you're facing, right? There's billions of people on the earth, and we all face things every single day. And so being able to find the empathy for the patience with someone else when they're perhaps going through something and maybe they're not talking about it, maybe they're keeping it to themselves, but you could just tell they're off and they're not there. So finding that empathy to help and support others is really important. But I can be found on lesliealvarez.com is my website. That's Leslie, Leslie, Alvarez, Alvarez.com. And there's a connect to me now link on the website.
Yeah, excellent. And thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your experience and really, being vulnerable and open. And for the audience, be sure to check out Leslie's socials, give her a follow and reach out to her, check out her website, check out her work. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.